to be precise, a podcast about the world of metrology, measurement, and accuracy.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are strapping in for a really high precision journey into the world of metrology.
The science of measurement.
Exactly. It's this sort of unseen infrastructure that lets modern science and commerce even function. And we're zooming in on one of the foundational players in weighing technology, Radwag.
And it's a crucial deep dive for you because metrology, it's really the silent language of compliance, of quality assurance. Think about it. Every time you fill your car, every time a scientist mixes a critical compound or a pharmacist measures an active ingredient, they're all relying on what we call legal metrology.
And what's just fascinating about Radwag, the company we're looking at, is their absolute global scale in this super specialized field.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah. Our sources confirm they're selling instruments to over 250 countries. That's not just widespread. That's basically fundamental to the global supply chain.
Exactly. And you can't operate at that scale without, massive infrastructure to back it up.
Right.
We're talking about an operation with 7 of its own sales offices, a network of over 100 distributors worldwide.
Wow.
Yeah, over 400 employees, and their whole operation, R&D, quality control, assembly, everything, it covers roughly 40,000 square meters. It's a colossal machine dedicated entirely to being right.
So with that kind of scale, who are the customers demanding this ultra-high precision? It can't just be for, like, a grocery store scale.
Oh, no, not at all. This is where the stakes are highest. The target industries are the ones where an error isn't just costly, it can be dangerous.
Like what?
Pharmacy, the chemical industry, high-end biotech, R&D. We are talking about measurements where, micrograms matter.
Okay.
So, for example, an instrument like their XA AT220.5Y microbalance can weigh up to 220 grams, but with a resolution down to 1/100th of a milligram. It's just staggering sensitivity.
Okay, let's unpack that. When you say that level of extreme sensitivity, what is the most technologically challenging thing they're actually measuring?
I would say one of the applications that really pushes the limits of technological control is automated filter weighing.
Filter weighing.
Yeah, it's critical for air quality monitoring, measuring suspended particulate matter, the PM10 and PM2.5 you hear about.
Ah, right. So for, like, environmental regulations.
Exactly. If a city needs to comply with standards like the new EN 1082341.2024 or US EPA rules, they need this kind of equipment.
That brings us to these systems that sound like they're straight out of a futuristic clean room, like the RB 2.5 YDI-FC. Why does monitoring air quality need a robot arm and its own climate control? Why can't a person just, place the filter on the scale?
Because the simple act of weighing it is the most vulnerable part of the whole process.
How so?
When those air filters come out of the field, their mass is incredibly sensitive. The human element, it introduces vibrations, heat from your body, shifts in humidity just by you being in the room.
And all of that can destabilize the measurement.
All of it. So the automation, the robot arm, it's there to eliminate those human errors.
So no human hands touch it.
Precisely. The robotic arm takes the filter inside an anti-static holder. It scans its QR code for full traceability.
Right.
And then places it gently inside an autonomous chamber. And that chamber is the real key.
It has its own climate control.
Its own climate control, yes.
Okay.
It maintains the exact temperature and relative humidity, which gives you the stability you need to get an accuracy of up to 0.0001 milligrams.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting for me, because you mentioned sensitivity to the environment. Give us that deep insight. Why does the environment actually change the mass of a filter?
Well, the mass change isn't from the sample, decaying or anything.
Yeah.
It's because the filter material itself is either absorbing or releasing water vapor from the air.
Adsorption.
Absorption or desorption, exactly.
Yeah.
And the sources give a fantastic example using nylon filters, which are notoriously hygroscopic. They just love water.
So what does that look like in practice?
For nylon, the formula they derive from testing is, it's M equals 51.799 plus 2.242 RH 2.907 T.
Okay, that's a lot of numbers.
It is. But what it tells an operator is terrifyingly simple. The mass, M, is heavily dependent on relative humidity, RH, and temperature, T.
So if the humidity shifts by just a few % between the moment the filter leaves the field and the moment you weigh it,
That change in humidity is instantly, and I mean instantly, translated into a measurement error.
Why?
So if you're aiming for legal compliance and your standard procedure allows for even tiny fluctuations in the lab environment, you've failed the measurement before you even log the data.
See, that automation and climate control, They aren't luxuries.
They're fundamental requirements. You have to neutralize the environment's massive influence on the filter material itself. That's the whole ball game right there.
It's a perfect bridge, actually. Speaking of water, let's transition to moisture analysis. Why is measuring water content so critical in, say, pharmaceuticals or food?
Oh, moisture content is everything. It's the main determinant of shelf life, of microbial stability, even the physical structure of a product.
So if a powder has too much moisture...
It clumps up, ruining its flow properties.
Yeah.
Or worse, it starts growing bacteria and mold. Too little, and you might affect its nutritional value or how it dissolves. It's all strictly controlled for legal compliance and, public safety.
And this is handled by a moisture analyzer, which I saw in the sources is called a łagosuzarki in Polish.
A weighing and drying device, yeah.
So how do they work beyond just being a scale with a heater?
It's all about targeted energy. They use infrared or IR radiation. And the key thing you need to know is that water molecules are really strong absorbers of IR energy.
Okay.
Especially in a couple of specific ranges. When that IR energy hits the sample, it makes the water molecules vibrate like crazy.
And that vibration generates heat, which drives the water out.
Exactly. That energy transfer leads to water absorption. The analyzer measures the mass before drying, the wet mass, and after the dry mass. The difference is your moisture content.
Right.
And these instruments, like the MA 200.x7 have incredible resolution, down to 0.00001 grams, which you absolutely need for this kind of work.
Now, since this measurement is differential, wet minus dry, what does that mean for maintenance and adjustment?
It means it has a kind of a dual personality. If you use the machine only for drying, the scale's calibration is a bit less central, though still important. But if an operator uses that moisture analyzer only as a precision scale, maybe they're not running a drying program, then that scale component has to be treated like any other high-end balance.
So it needs regular adjustment with certified weights?
Absolutely. Using certified external or internal mass standards to make sure its sensitivity is constant, regardless of the heating element.
That's a vital distinction, and it brings us right to the language of precision itself. We use accuracy and precision interchangeably all the time, but in metrology, the difference is, well, it's massive, isn't it?
It's fundamental. It governs everything we've been talking about. So precision is all about consistency. It requires a series of measurements, not just one.
So if you throw a bunch of darts and they all land in a tiny little cluster.
Exactly. A tiny cluster. That's high precision. But that cluster could be way off in the corner, nowhere near the bullseye.
Right. So it's precise, but not accurate.
Not accurate at all. Accuracy is how close you are to the true value hidden in the bullseye.
And what about resolution? The sources draw a sharp line there, too.
Yes. Resolution, or D, is just the smallest division the scale can display. You could have a scale that shows 5, 6 decimal places.
But that doesn't mean it's accurate.
Not at all. That high resolution doesn't determine the accuracy of the indications. It could be consistently wrong if it hasn't been adjusted properly.
And this is where the law steps in. Legal metrology, to make sure the devices are not just precise, but legally accurate.
Correct. Legal metrology dictates all the statutory requirements. And for trade, we stop talking about resolution, and we start talking about the Legal Verification Division, which is E.
And E defines the acceptable error.
It defines the boundaries of error, yes. Scales get classified. So, a Class 2 scale, used for high-value goods like pharma or jewelry, has to stick to incredibly tight limits.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. The PS 750.x2 scale from the sources. For a low between 200 and 750 grams, the maximum permissible error is plus or minus 1.5 times E.
So if he is, say, 0.01 grams, your scale cannot deviate by more than plus or minus 0.015 grams.
A tiny, legally enforced margin. And that oversight doesn't just stop with the scales. It extends to the weights you use to check the scales.
Of course.
Mass standards have to comply with OIML R111-1 with these incredibly fine classes like E1, E2, F1. E1 is the absolute pinnacle. This whole system ensures the entire chain of measurement is transparent and verified.
Which makes perfect sense. So once these devices are installed, what keeps them trustworthy day after day? I mean, the whole instrument life cycle.
That's the operational challenge, right? A robust quality system like one under ISO 17065 demands procedures for constantly monitoring your equipment. And the number one enemy of accuracy here is the environment.
We talked about humidity, but what else?
Temperature dynamics are huge. If the temperature changes too fast, the metal components inside the weighing mechanism expand or contract just slightly,
Causing the readings to drift.
Exactly. You get indication scatter or zero drift. That's why acclimatization time, just letting the scale warm up after you plug it in, is so critical. And then you have the obvious stuff, vibrations, air movement from vents or doors.
So you've got to check it periodically. The sources also stress periodic adjustment, regulating the sensitivity. Why is that more important for heavier loads?
It's interesting. For small masses, your measurement is really dominated by random error, those tiny, unpredictable environmental things.
Right.
But once you get to high loads, say above 50% of the max capacity, the accuracy becomes highly dependent on sensitivity changes in the mechanism itself. And adjustment corrects for that drift.
So you need a strict procedure, a standard operating procedure for that.
Using those certified mass standards we just talked about.
And this leads us to the crucial realization, the real mic drop moment in metrology on why traceability is so essential. Why is using a certified weight so radically different from just using the number stamped on it?
This is where labs make just costly mistakes. Traceability means every measurement you make links back to an international standard through an unbroken chain. Let's run that 50-gram test example.
Okay.
Scenario 1. A user grabs a 50-gram weight. They assume its mass is exactly 50.00000000 grams, the nominal value. They put it on the scale. The scale reads 50.00000041 grams.
So they think, my scale is broken.
They look at that deviation and conclude, scale faulty, send for repair. A reasonable but very wrong assumption.
Okay, so what's scenario 2?
Scenario 2. The user grabs that same weight, but this time they check its certificate. The certificate proves the weight's actual certified mass is 50 grams, plus a tiny deviation of, say, 0.000240 grams.
Ah, so it's not actually 50 grams.
It's not. So they weigh it, and the scale reads 50.00000001 grams. Now, if you account for the known deviation on the certificate, the actual error is negligible.
So the scale is working perfectly.
The scale is working perfectly. And this raises the big question, right? An ultra-high precision scale from a company like Radwag is functionally useless if you don't use certified weights and correctly account for their known tiny deviation.
Traceability is the difference between trusting a number and trusting the science.
That's it, exactly.
That distinction is just so powerful. This has been such a deep dive into Radwag's reach, the tech behind weighing, and, the strict rules governing everything from how we define precision to how we maintain traceability.
And as you think about all of this, here's a final thought for you. When you're selecting any high-end measuring system, you're always balancing three critical factors.
Right.
First, your desired accuracy. Is a 0.1 microgram standard deviation what you need, or is 1 microgram good enough? Second, the complexity of external stability required for compliance. And third, just the practical volume of samples.
How many you have to run.
Yeah. Do you have a few, a medium amount, or many over 50 a day? Because that operational volume is what fundamentally dictates whether you need a simple bench scale or, a multi-million-dollar climate-controlled robotic system.
This podcast was created based on content prepared by Martyna Roszowska-Jarosz, PhD, ON. Its narration and production were generated using artificial intelligence. Thank you for your attention.